Hello. Now that I have imported my AutoCAD drawing and I joined all my lines to make sure that I can extrude them as a closed object, now I can start by extruding my objects. Now, extrude is the process of transforming a 2D drawing into a 3D object so that it becomes a 3D model once the details are added to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that I have the correct layer activated, which is the walls layer. I'm going to go to solid and I'm going to extrude planar curve. Right now, I'm going to do something that you will see a bit confusing. Before I begin extruding, I need to start thinking of my drawing or my object. I'm going to tell you the intuitive thing that most people do. I'm just going to click on this curve, and this curve, because those are the curves I want to extrude. Once I'm done, it says press enter when done, or you can right click on your mouse button. So I'm going to right click right now. And notice how it's asking me to have the extrusion distance, to input the extrusion distance. Before I do that, I need to move to solid in the command line and make sure that yes is toggled. That's because if it's not toggled, that means the object is not going to be capped, meaning that you will have spaces between the curves. So let's do this as no and show you the difference. So once I press here and say the ceiling height is about 3,200, so I'm going to type 3,200 and press on enter. Now, if I turn, now it looks like it's a really nice model, but if I turn into the shaded view or rendered view, you can see that I have gaps right between the lines. This might be a bit clearer. So this is not filled, meaning it looks like they are just a sheet or a plane. To avoid that, I'm going to press on Ctrl Z and repeat the process again. I'm going to go to solid, extrude planar curve, straight, and I'm going to select these objects again. But once I'm done, I'm going to right click. Right now, before I input the extrusion distance, I need to make sure that solid says yes, is toggled to yes. To toggle it, you simply have to press on it. If I toggle it now, it says no, then I will have the holes that I had before. And if I press on it again, it says yes, and you will see that I will have the holes filled in or capped. So now I'm just going to press on the numbers. So the ceiling height is 3,200 units or 3,500. That's up to the designer. And now I'm going to press on enter. And you can see how now my holes are capped. Now, some people might have this object as a closed object, which means they will have a cover right over here. And that is this might be problematic. So you will have to make sure that you use the Boolean function, or maybe you can extrude this object separately so that you can not cap the objects, not have the cap one. So this is how I extruded my walls. The next step is to make the holes. Now, in order to be able to make the holes, I'm going to have to use these rectangles. I can either move my solid object, I'd rather move it, or maybe have these rectangles drawn before I extrude my objects, or you can simply start drawing on it. But in that case, you have to keep an eye on the 3D perspective to make sure that it's snapping to the correct points. Let's do this together. I'm going to press on this rectangle button here, and I'm going to go over this line. Obviously, my drawing is not very accurate, and therefore I might have problems with my lines, and that is why I need to make sure, see, I'm always keeping an eye on the perspective view to make sure that it's snapping to the correct level, because sometimes it snaps to the point on top. So on plan, it looks like it's snapping to the correct point, but in reality, it's snapping to a point that is on top, or a point that I don't want it to snap to. So it looks like I'm having problems with this snap. Oh, there it is, it worked. And now I can press right here and make sure that it snapped to the correct point. Now, what I'm going to do is, you might find this funny. I'm going to press on these control points. I have my shift button pressed on my keyboard, and I'm going to select these two control points. Next is I'm going to move them. So I'm going to press on the move button here, and I'm going to move them slightly backwards. So I have my shift button again pressed, so I make sure I'm not altering the rectangle. So once you press on the shift button, you make sure that the ortho mode is on, and therefore you are working parallel to the plan view. So now I'm extending my object slightly beyond the opening. Again, so now I have a bigger rectangle than I want it to be. Before I go on, I need to move this object to the Windows layer and make sure that I make it the active layer. So to move my object to the Windows layer, I'm going to select it, go to the Properties tab right here on the right-hand side, and then I'm going to press on the layer under layer. I'm going to press on the arrow right here and make sure that I move it to Windows. So you can see that now my object is blue simply because the Windows layer have a blue color. So now I'm going to extrude this. I'm going to go back to solid, extrude planar curve, straight. I'm going to select my window, right click, and I'm going to introduce the height of the window. First of all, make sure that solid is toggled to yes, and that the distance is it's the same as the height of the ceiling from the bottom to the top of the window. Sorry, not the ceiling, the window. The height of the window from the bottom of the window to the top of the window. So the windowsill to the lintel of the window. I'm going to assume that it's about 1,000 units, maybe 1,500. So I'm going to type 1,000 right now. And now you can see that I have a box that is 1,000 units high within the extent of the window openings. However, it's on the ground floor, so it's still at the ground level. If I move to the shaded view, you can see that the window is at the bottom. Now all I have to do is to move it from the bottom to the top. So I'm going to select it and select the move button. And I'm going to work with this plane here. So I'm going to move it in this direction, say 900 units, maybe 900 millimeters up. And now I'm going to click on my mouse button. And there is my window right here. Now the window is there, it's bigger than what I want it to be, and it doesn't have an opening. To make the openings, please watch the next tutorial so that you can learn how we can make holes in a 3D object.